I never believed in love at first sight, until I met Emily. We were both graduate students at Berkeley. She immersed in the world of art curation, while I chased the logic of structural engineering. She had a habit of wearing combat boots under her thrift sundresses, debating postmodernism like it was a full-contact sport. Our first date was in a dimly lit dive bar, where she sketched the bartender on a napkin, her fingertips smudged with charcoal. I kept that napkin for years, folded inside my copy of Infinite Jest, until time and creases tore through the man's face, leaving only fragments. 12 years later, the fragments had multiplied. Marriage softened her edges but sharpened her ambitions. Gone were the paint-stained overalls, replaced with tailored blazers. Her laughter, once reckless and free, became measured, calculated for gallery openings and networking events. I didn't mind the late nights, the endless schmoozing, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke about securing a new patron. Her passion for success seemed harmless, even admirable. After all, my own world was consumed by bridges and skyscrapers, blueprints sprawling across our dining table like cryptic love letters to gravity. We became satellites orbiting separate suns, colliding only in the dark, our intimacy reduced to shared takeout and half-hearted updates about mutual friends. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday. She forgot our anniversary, arrived home at midnight with a scent of jasmine clinging to her collar, a perfume she never wore. Her explanation was light, airy, rehearsed, a donor event. You know how these things go. I nodded, swallowing the metallic taste of suspicion. But that night, I lay awake, tracing the geometry of her breathing, counting the seconds between each exhale as if rhythm alone could reveal the truth. Over the next month, the clues piled up like unread receipts. A charge for a boutique hotel in Carmel by the Sea. Lipstick stains on her coffee thermos. Too bold to shave for boardroom meetings. Once, while she showered, her phone buzzed with a message. Don't forget the necklace tonight. The notification vanished before I could unlock the screen. I became an archaeologist of my own demise. One evening, her laptop glowed temptingly from the couch, left open like an unguarded shrine. A lifetime of trust warred with the animal need to know. Inside a folder labeled client proposals, nestled among PDFs of gallery layouts, I found them. Photos. Emily, bare-shouldered in a silk robe I had never seen before, laughing against a hotel balcony. A man's hand rested possessively on her thigh, a gold Rolex glinting in the evening light. The timestamp? Our wedding anniversary. I memorized a Rolex's serial number. The next day, I called in sick and drove to the hotel. The front desk clerk, a pimply kid named Tyler, barely glanced at the photo before smirking. Oh, yay. Mr. and Mrs. Van Horn are here every month. Sweet. The name sent a chill through me. A quick search revealed Richard Van Horn, real estate mogul, patron of the arts, collector of vintage cars, and mistresses half his age. His Instagram painted a picture of perfection, a wife in tennis whites, twin daughters at Yale. I started collecting evidence. Security footage of Emily entering his apartment, receipts for gifts hidden in her office, a Cartier bracelet, lace laundry from agent provocateur. I even tailed them to Napa, watching through binoculars as they fed each other oysters at a vineyard. Her laughter drifted across the valley, light and careless, the same laugh that had once belonged to me. The final betrayal arrived via cloud storage. Unknowingly, she had synced her phone to our shared account. Videos autoplayed in a grotesque slideshow, Emily arching beneath him in a room I'd never seen before, her nails raking down his back. Close-ups of handwritten notes. You're my masterpiece. The worst part wasn't the sex. It was her smile afterward, lazy, sated, the same smile she used to wear on our quiet Sunday mornings. That night, I sat in the garage, listening to the rain hammer against the roof like a deranged heartbeat. At 2 a.m., her keys jingled in the lock, heels clicking across the hardwood. She didn't check on me, didn't call my name, just hummed the Taylor Swift song as she poured herself a glass of wine. The sound floated through the house like a ghost. I waited until her breathing deepened in sleep before stepping into our bedroom. Moonlight carved her face into that of a stranger's. For a fleeting moment, I considered waking her, demanding answers, but rage had crystallized into something colder, sharper. Revenge, I realized, wouldn't be a bomb. It would be a slow leak, silent, invisible, until the pressure tore everything apart. By dawn, I had a plan. Revenge is not a blade. It's a blueprint. It requires patience, precision, and an intimate understanding of load-bearing weaknesses. Emily's life was a structure of curated illusions. Her career, her reputation, her marriage. I would make each beam splinter under its own weight. I started with her professional vanity. For months, I posed as Arthur Voss, a reclusive art critic with a cult following on an obscure Substack. My essays dissected Emily's exhibitions with surgical praise, likening her curatorial eye to Peggy Guggenheim's, her artistic vision to Diaghiller's Ballets Russes. She devoured every word. She screenshot my reviews, sending them to Richard with captions like, "See? I'm the real visionary here." Her ego became my greatest collaborator. Next, I became Klaus Reinhard, a Berlin-based collector obsessed with authentic American narratives. Through encrypted emails, I offered to fund her upcoming show, Fractured Identities, on one condition. She included an anonymous artist I had discovered. I ghost wrote drip with references to Betrayal and Duality Emily Bitchy. Always loved anything that smelled of Prestige and Martyrdom the Anonymous. Artist was Claire Nguyen, Emily's former classmate whose thesis she plagiarized. A decade ago, Clara now worked at a Vietnamese nail salon in San Jose. Hands cracked from acetone her canvases. Stacked beneath a leaky sink I tracked. Her down paid 6 months' rent for a studio and supplied materials. Her work was raw, brutal, magnificent oil paintings of faceless women clawing through mirrors when I suggested she signed them. MBLLY, Emily's maiden name, Clarispat. Out her cigarette, you're one sick. She said, but she took the check. Meanwhile, Klaus demanded due diligence. I hired a private investigator, Grizz, ex-cop named Russo, to dig into Emily's artistic integrity. His report was a grenade photos of her leaving Richards, penthouse receipts for pills she'd bought from a dealer in the Tenderloin, audio of her mocking donors as wallet, handed Troit's a gossip blogger who traded in Art of Bloodsport by Dawn the Hash. Fraudulent femme trended. Emily's panic was a quiet thing. She stopped wearing red, switched to loose black turtlenecks like a widow in rehearsal. Richard's name vanished from her lips. At home she'd stare at her reflection in the kettle, tracing the lines around her mouth as if they'd appeared overnight. Once I found her burning a stack of letters in the fireplace, love notes maybe, or contracts. She didn't notice me watching the final piece. Required poetry. I commissioned a glass blower to create 365 shards of mirrored glass, one for each day of our last year together. Each fragment was etched with a timestamp and GPS. Coordinate the hotel in Carmel Richards' apartment, the vineyard, the artist. Installed them in the gallery central chamber, suspended on nearly invisible wires when spotlights hit the shards. Cast kaleidoscopic shadows, transforming the room into a whole of splintered cells. Emily called it a comment on digital fragmentation. She had no idea the coordinates were real on opening night. I wore a suit she bought me for our 10th anniversary. The gallery pulsed with champagne and Schadenfreude. Critics circled Clara's paintings, murmuring about rediscovered genius. Emily hovered near the mirrored installation, her smile brittle as sugar glass. When a reporter asked about the EMBL signature, she shrugged. The artist wishes to remain anonymous. Some truths are too fragile. 4 labels. At 8:47 p.m. the screens flickered. A video played on loop. Security footage of Emily and Richard entering Suite 12, her hand tucked in his back pocket. Then the donor list for Fractured Identities with Richard's name highlighted in pulsing red. Finally, scans of her stolen thesis beside Clara's original sketches. A crowd froze, phones rising like a flock of startled crows. Emily backed into the mirrored chamber. A shard grazed her cheek, drawing a thread of blood for a heartbeat. Our eyes met through the prism of glass. She mouthed something. Why? But the answer was already everywhere, refracted into infinity. I left as the first camera flash erupted. Revenge, when executed perfectly, leaves no fingerprints, only ghosts. Emily's unraveling was not a single event, but 1,000 paper cuts, each one leaching color from her carefully constructed persona the morning after the gallery. Implosion, her name dominated. Headlines curator or con artist blared. Art forum the Van Horn affair patronage. Or predation trended on Twitter, accompanied by memes of her face, photoshopped onto Dorian Gray's portrait. Richard Ever the Pragmatist released a statement painting her as an unstable temptress's wife. Hosted a charity lunch in the same day, pearls gleaming. Like armor, Emily barricaded herself in the home we once shared, drawing curtains. Against paparazzi lenses I watched, through security camera feeds as she smashed her awards rising stein. Curation women in arts innovation, against the marble floor's shards of acrylic trophies mixed with slashed canvases, a Jackson Pollock of disgrace. She stopped answering her agent calls, stopped eating except for handfuls of almonds eaten robotically over the sink. Her reflection became her enemy. She covered every mirror with black cloth, then tore them down in fits, screaming at the hollow-eyed stranger they revealed. I let the silence between us ferment 3 weeks later. I mail her a USB drive, no return address, containing every email, photo, and video from her affair included. Was a spreadsheet, dates, hotel costs, even the market value of gifts Richard had given her. Tax evasion the IRS would call it. She'd know it as annihilation. Her lawyer called it extortion. I called it arithmetic. The final blow arrived in winter snow dusted the city as Emily's bankruptcy hearing loomed. She'd sold the penthouse, the Cartier pieces, even her vintage Chanel suits to pay legal fees. What remained fit into 2 suitcases. I found her at dawn in Golden Gate Park, sitting on our old bench near the Dutch windmill. She wore sunglasses, despite the gloom. Her once vivid hair dull under a beanie. A half-empty bottle of Pinot Noir jutted from her purse. She didn't recognize me until I placed a envelope beside her. Inside, a ticket to Marzil and a key to a studio apartment. ID rented under her name. No note, no demand, just an exit for a moment. Her shoulders sagged, relief or surrender. I couldn't tell. Then she stood abruptly, wine bottle shattering against the bench. You don't get to save me, she hissed to the empty air, though I'd already vanished into the fog. Months later, Claire and Gwen's debut solo show sold out. At Gagosian, critics praised the searing authenticity. In the exhibition center stood the mirrored installation, now titled 365 Days of Light. Viewers wept before it, unaware they were mourning a ghost. I visit, sometimes stand in the chambers. These hard as shards spin lazily, casting prismatic scars on the walls. My favorite coordinate glows faintly sweet. 12 at the Carmel Hotel. It's etched numbers catching the light like a scar. Last week I received a postcard from Marseille's. No words, just a charcoal sketch of a woman standing at a cliff's edge, her back to the view of the paper. Smelled faintly of jasmine. I burned it in the same fireplace where she'd once purged her secrets. Watched the edges curl inward, blackening the woman's outline until she dissolved into ash. Some fractures never heal. They simply become the architecture you build upon.